There is a quiet battle happening inside you, not the one people see, not the one you talk about, but the one between who you are and who you are becoming. And sometimes that battle feels exhausting because bad habits are not just actions. They are patterns, they are comfort zones. They are the places you run to when you feel weak, stressed, lonely, or overwhelmed. They whisper to you just one more time, and before you know it, one more time becomes a lifestyle. But here's the truth you need to hear. You were not created to be controlled by your habits. You were created to master them. Allah did not design you to be a prisoner of your impulses. He gave you something powerful, free will, awareness, and the ability to return. And no matter how many times you fall into the same habit, the door back is never closed. But let's be honest. Stopping a bad habit is not just about saying, I quit. If it were that easy, you would have done it already. It's deeper than that. Bad habits are often tied to something inside you, a wound, a fear, a need for comfort, a moment of weakness. So if you only try to fight the habit, but ignore the root, it will always come back. That's why real change begins with honesty. Ask yourself, why do I keep going back to this? What am I trying to escape? What am I trying to feel? Because sometimes what you call a bad habit is actually a symptom, and healing the symptom without addressing the cause never lasts. But here's where your strength comes in. Every time you resist, even for a moment, you are proving something to yourself. You are not weak. You are in training. Even the struggle itself is a form of growth. Every time you say no to something harmful, you are saying yes to your future. Every time you pause before giving in, you are rebuilding your self-control. And even if you fail again, that moment of awareness still counts. Because change is not built in one perfect decision. It is built in repeated attempts. Now understand this clearly. You will not become a different person overnight, and that's okay. Because transformation in Islam was never meant to be instant. It is meant to be consistent. Small steps, sincere effort, turning back again and again. That is what creates real change. So instead of saying, I will never do this again, start saying, I will try again today. Break the cycle one day at a time and replace, don't just remove. If you leave a void, your old habit will return to fill it. So fill your time with something better. Fill your heart with something cleaner. Fill your routine with something meaningful. Because a heart that is empty will always look for something to attach to. And above all, never disconnect this journey from Allah. You are not fighting this battle alone. Every time you make a sincere effort to leave something harmful for His sake, He sees it, even when no one else does, even when you feel like you're failing. And sometimes the biggest mistake you can make is thinking that because you slipped, you are not worthy of trying again. That thought itself is a trap, because the one who keeps returning is more beloved than the one who never struggles. So don't let guilt push you away. Let it pull you closer. Turn your weakness into a reason to reconnect, dar your hands and say, Ya Allah, I am trying. Even if I am weak, I am still trying. Help me. And trust this, a heart that keeps turning back to Allah will never be left broken. So yes, your habit may be strong, but your ability to change is stronger, not because of your willpower alone, but because you are supported by the one who created you. This is your moment not to be perfect, but to begin again with sincerity. Because the person you want to become is waiting on the other side of your next decision. And that decision starts now. Bad habits are rarely just about what you do. They are about why you do it. On the surface, it looks simple. You repeat something you know isn't good for you. You tell yourself to stop. You promise yourself this is the last time. But somehow you find yourself back in the same place again. Why? Because what you're fighting is not just a behavior. It's a pattern rooted inside you. Every bad habit is usually connected to an emotional trigger. It might be stress, loneliness, boredom, anxiety, or even sadness you haven't fully processed. The habit becomes your escape, your comfort, your distraction from something deeper that feels too heavy to face. So when you try to just stop without understanding what's driving it, you are only cutting the leaves while the roots remain untouched. And anything with roots will grow back. That's why real change begins with courage. The courage to be honest with yourself. You have to pause and ask, what do I feel right before I fall into this habit? What am I trying to avoid? What am I trying to replace or numb? Because sometimes the habit is not the real problem. It's just the symptom. For example, a person may turn to distractions not because they are lazy, but because they are overwhelmed. Someone may seek harmful comforts not because they lack discipline, but because they feel empty inside. Another may repeat a mistake not because they don't care, but because they don't know how to cope with their emotions in a healthy way. When you understand this, something shifts inside you. You stop seeing yourself as weak, and you start seeing yourself as someone who needs healing. And that changes everything because you no longer fight yourself with anger. You approach yourself with awareness instead of saying, why am I like this? You begin to ask, what is hurting inside me that I keep running back to this? And in that question lies the beginning of freedom. But awareness alone is not enough. It must lead to action. Once you identify the root, you have to start replacing what's unhealthy with something that actually nourishes you. If stress is the trigger, learn healthier ways to release it. If loneliness is the cause, seek meaningful connection. If emptiness is the issue, fill your time with purpose and remembrance. Because the truth is, your heart cannot stay empty. It will always look for something to hold on to. So if you don't choose what fills it, your habits will choose for you. And this is where your responsibility begins. You don't control every feeling that enters your heart, but you do control how you respond to it. You can either keep escaping or you can start healing. And healing is not easy. It requires patience. It requires discomfort. It requires facing parts of yourself you've been avoiding. But it is worth it. Because every time you address the root instead of feeding the habit, you weaken its power over you. And slowly, what once felt uncontrollable becomes manageable. Then, one day, you look back and realize that habit that once controlled your life no longer has the same hold on you. Not because you forced yourself to stop, because you understood yourself enough to change. And that is real transformation. One of the most dangerous lies a person can believe is this: I can't change. Because the moment you accept that lie, you stop trying. You stop fighting. You start surrendering to your habits as if they define you, as if they own you, but that is not who you are. You were not created to be a slave to your impulses. You were not designed to be dragged by every desire, every urge, every weakness that passes through your heart. You were given something powerful, something that separates you from everything else in creation, the ability to choose. And that choice is your power, even if your habit feels strong, even if it feels automatic. Even if it feels like you've been doing it for years, there is always a moment, even if it's small, where you are aware, a moment before you act, a moment where you pause, a moment where you know. That moment is proof that you are not controlled. You are deciding. Maybe it's a quick second. Maybe it feels too fast to even catch, but it's there. And the more you begin to notice it, the more you begin to realize something. You are not powerless. You've just been untrained. Self-control is not something you either have or don't have. It is something you build, just like a muscle. At first, it feels weak. You try to resist and you fail. You try again and you fall again. And it becomes easy to assume that you'll never get stronger, but strength doesn't come from never falling. It comes from getting back up again and again until resistance becomes easier. Think about it. The first time you try to break a habit, it feels impossible. The second time, it still feels hard. The 10th time, something begins to shift. Not because the habit disappeared, but because you are changing. Every time you resist, even if it's just for a few seconds longer than before, you are building control. Every time you delay giving in, you are strengthening your discipline. Every time you become aware before acting, you are weakening the habit's grip on you. And even if you eventually fall after resisting, that effort still counts, because progress is not measured only by success. It is measured by struggle. And this is something you must understand deeply. You don't need to be perfect to be in control. Control is not about never slipping. Control is about not surrendering completely. It's about refusing to accept that this is just who I am, because who you are is not your worst habit. Who you are is the one who keeps trying to rise above it. And the more you train that part of yourself, the part that resists, the part that reflects, the part that wants better, the stronger it becomes. But there is another layer to this. True control doesn't come from willpower alone. Because willpower fades. It weakens when you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed. If you rely only on yourself, you will burn out. That's why your strength must be connected to something greater than you. When you remind yourself that you are accountable, that your choices matter, that every small act of resistance is seen, it gives your struggle meaning. It turns your effort into something purposeful. And suddenly, you're not just fighting a habit. You're striving to become a better version of yourself for a higher reason. So, when you feel like giving up, remind yourself, you are not stuck. You are not trapped. You are not defined by what you struggle with. You are someone who has been given the ability to choose differently. And that ability, no matter how small it feels right now, is enough to start changing your life. Because the moment you stop believing that your habits control you is the moment you begin to take your power back. One of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to break a bad habit is this. They aim for perfection overnight. They wake up one day and decide, that's it, I'm done forever. No plan, no gradual shift, just a sudden extreme decision, and for a day, or maybe a few days, they hold on. But then reality hits, the urge returns, the routine feels empty, the pressure builds, and when they finally slip, it doesn't feel like a small mistake, it feels like total failure, so they give up, not because they're incapable of change, but because they tried to change too fast. too perfectly and too unrealistically. Here's the truth you need to accept. Real transformation is not built on intensity. It is built on consistency. It's not about how strong you start. It's about how steady you continue. Think about it this way. A habit wasn't formed in one day. It was built through repetition, small actions repeated over time, so it makes no sense to expect it to disappear instantly. Instead of trying to eliminate everything at once, focus on reducing, managing, and gradually replacing. If you fall into a habit daily, aim to interrupt it once. If you can't stop completely, delay it. If you can't delay it long, shorten it. Every small step counts because every small step is a break in the pattern, and patterns don't collapse all at once. They weaken over time. Consistency also builds trust with yourself. Right now, if you've tried and failed many times, there's a part of you that doesn't fully believe your promises anymore. You say, I'll change, but deep down you doubt it. That's not because you're weak. It's because your actions haven't matched your intentions consistently. But when you start showing up even in small ways, you rebuild that trust. When you say, today I will try, and you actually try, when you resist even for a moment, when you get back up after slipping, you are proving to yourself that change is possible, and that belief is powerful. Because once you believe you can change, your effort becomes stronger, more focused, and more patient. Another important part of consistency is accepting that setbacks are part of the process. You will have days where you do well and days where you don't. That does not mean you're back at the beginning. Progress is not a straight line. It's messy. It moves forward, then dips, then rises again. What matters is not that you never fall. What matters is that you don't stay down. Don't let one mistake turn into a mindset of, I've ruined everything. That thinking is more dangerous than the habit itself. Instead, learn to recover quickly. If you slip today, don't wait for a perfect Monday to start again. Start again the next moment. The sooner you return, the less power the setback has over you. Consistency is not about never breaking your streak. It's about never breaking your commitment. And over time, these small, repeated efforts begin to compound. What once felt difficult becomes easier. What once felt impossible becomes manageable. What once controlled you begins to lose its grip, not because you made one big decision, but because you made many small ones again and again. So don't underestimate the power of a single good choice. Don't dismiss the importance of one moment of resistance because those moments are building something quickly, gradually, powerfully. And one day you will look back and realize you didn't change in one dramatic leap. You changed because you refused to stop trying. One of the most overlooked truths about breaking bad habits is this. You cannot simply remove a habit, you must replace it. Many people focus only on stopping. They say, I just need to quit this. So they try to cut it out of their life completely. But what they don't realize is that every habit, even a harmful one, is serving a purpose. It might be giving you comfort, it might be distracting you from stress, it might be filling your time, it might even be helping you avoid something difficult. So when you remove that habit without replacing it, you create a void, and that void doesn't stay empty for long. The mind and heart naturally seek something to fill that space, and if you don't consciously choose what replaces it, your old habit will quietly return because it already knows how to fill that gap. That's why people often relapse, not because they lack willpower, but because they left emptiness behind. Real change is not just about subtraction, it's about substitution. You have to give yourself something better to turn to, something that fulfills the same need, but in a healthier, more meaningful way. For example, if your habit is triggered by stress, you need a new way to release that stress. If it's caused by boredom, you need something engaging. If it's rooted in loneliness, you need connection. If it's tied to emptiness, you need purpose. This requires intention. You can't wait until the urge hits and then try to figure it out. You have to prepare alternatives in advance, so when the moment comes, you already know where to turn. Ask yourself, what can I do instead when I feel this urge? What action will actually benefit me in that moment? And make it practical. If the alternative is too complicated, too time-consuming, or too unrealistic, you won't stick to it. The replacement needs to be accessible, something you can turn to immediately. Even something small can make a difference. A short walk, a moment of reflection, reading something beneficial, reaching out to someone, engaging in something productive. The goal is not perfection. The goal is redirection. You're training yourself to respond differently, and at first it will feel unnatural. Your old habit will feel easier, more familiar, more comforting. That's because your mind is used to it. It's been reinforced over time. But every time you choose the replacement instead, even if it feels awkward, you are building a new pathway. And over time, that new pathway becomes stronger. Another important part of replacement is filling your life with meaning. Because many bad habits grow stronger in empty spaces, empty time, empty hearts, empty routines. When your life lacks direction, it becomes easier to fall into patterns that waste your energy and pull you away from who you want to be. So don't just focus on removing what's harmful. Focus on building what is beneficial. Create a routine that supports your growth. Surround yourself with things that remind you of your purpose. Engage in actions that bring you closer to who you want to become. Because when your life is filled with intention, there is less room for destruction. And understand this clearly. Replacement is not a one-time decision. It is a continuous practice. Some days you will choose better. Some days you won't. But every time you make the effort to replace instead of repeat, you are shifting your direction, slowly but surely, until one day, the thing you once depended on is no longer what you reach for. Not because you forced yourself to let go, but because you found something better to hold on to. There is something heavier than the habit itself. It's not the mistake, it's not the weakness, it's not even the repetition. It's losing hope, because the moment you start believing, I'll never change, you stop trying. And when you stop trying, the habit no longer needs to fight you. You've already surrendered. That's why staying connected to Allah is not just a part of the journey, it is the foundation of it, because your strength will not always be enough. There will be days when your willpower is low, days when you feel tired, overwhelmed, or emotionally drained, days when the habit feels stronger than your resistance. And in those moments, if you rely only on yourself, you will feel like you're losing. But when your heart is connected to Allah, something changes. You realize that this struggle is not just about breaking a habit. It's about returning. It's about growing. It's about becoming closer to the one who understands you completely. And that gives your struggle meaning. Every time you resist something harmful, even for a moment, you are not just practicing self-control. You are making a choice for the sake of Allah. Every time you turn away from a bad habit, even if you fall back later, that moment of turning away is seen, valued, and never wasted. And even when you do fall, you are not disqualified. This is where many people go wrong. They think, I messed up again. What's the point of trying? They let guilt turn into distance. They let shame convince them that they are not worthy of returning. But that thinking is more dangerous than the habit itself, because it pushes you further away from the very source of your healing. Understand this clearly. Your mistakes do not close the door. Your decision to stop returning does. As long as you keep turning back, the door is open. No matter how many times you fall, no matter how many times you repeat the same mistake, no matter how weak you feel, what matters is that you don't give up on coming back. And sometimes the most sincere connection with Allah comes from those moments of weakness. When you raise your hands, not because you're perfect, but because you're struggling. When you say, Ya Allah, I keep failing, but I don't want to give up. Help me. That honesty, that humility, that need is powerful. It softens your heart. It strengthens your sincerity. It reminds you that you are not alone in this fight, and slowly your relationship with Allah becomes your source of strength. You begin to rely less on your fluctuating emotions and more on your connection with Him. You begin to see your struggle not as a sign of failure, but as an opportunity to grow closer, because every time you return, you are choosing Allah over your weakness, and that choice, repeated again and again, transforms you. But never forget, hope is essential. If you lose hope, you lose the reason to keep going, so protect it. Even if your progress feels slow, have hope. Even if you slip again, have hope. Even if you feel like you're starting over, have hope. Because change does not happen in a straight line, and Allah does not expect perfection from you. He expects effort, sincerity, and a heart that keeps returning. So don't let your past define your future. Don't let your mistakes convince you that you're stuck. You are still capable of change. You are still worthy of guidance. You are still able to rise. As long as you keep turning back, you are never truly lost. And one day you will look back at this struggle and realize it didn't just break your habit, it brought you closer to Allah than you've ever been before.